We can't hear you though. Good morning.
Hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, Lori's. Okay, Nancy. All right. So we are translators, and people expect that it's kind of an easy thing to translate. In the early tradition, and this title goes through, Buddha identifies himself, Gautama calls himself the Tatagata. And if you look, many people don't translate this title. And I'm going to show you why, but I'm also going to explain why it's such an important title. So tata is an adverb, and it means as it is, or that way. It's correlated with another adverb, which is yata, which is which way. So yata, which way, tata, that way. Gata is the perfect past participle, perfect passive participle of the verb of going, gum, which is cognate to English gone. Sanskrit and English are cousin languages. They're all part of the Indo-European family of language. Spanish is included. So if you were going to do it literally, which we can't, it would be gone to, sometimes people say thus, gone to thusness. So what the heck is all that about? So first of all, tata is shorthand for the abstract tata, ta. Ta at the end of a word in Sanskrit makes it abstract. So it's not just that way or as it is, it's as it is ness or that way ness. Just the that way ness of reality. And gata literally mean gone. Verbs of going in Sanskrit are also verbs of knowing. So it means the person who has understood things as they are. Now you figure out how to put that into somebody's name. The person who has understood things as they are in English. So sometimes they do say, thus gone one. Very unmellifluous. So many of us just keep Tatagata. But what does it mean that he's understood things as they are? Well, it turns out as we meditate, and we all practice meditation here, and we can even recognize this, hopefully, even when we do a little bit of mindfulness on the breathing. That we kind of live in a shell, a veiled experience of words. And most of the words we live in are kind of reifications. What does reification mean? It's a solidification of things. This is a table. Well, that seems like it's not something really profound, but in Buddhist perspective, it's actually very, very profound that we use the word table, and there's nothing wrong with using words, but we reify the table and we take it to be something solid, enduring, and another big word, autonomous, which just means independent. The table stands on its own. And so a lot of effort goes into Buddhist philosophy to help us understand that this table's not independent. It was dependent on a carpenter. It's dependent on its parts. There are arbitrarily legs. Here it happens to be sides. There's a top. And when you get the top and the sides together in a certain way, we call this thing a table. But it doesn't have any kind of big words, inherent existence. It doesn't exist in and of itself. It's impermanent. We all kind of cognitively know that, certainly if we put it outside and let the elements get to it, it'd be pretty quick that a handful of years, water in Houston would get to it. The termites would get to it. And its impermanence would be very, very evident. Not solid. Knowing things the way they are, tatagata, the thusness of them, is a kind of spiritual goal in Buddhist practice. So I'm going to do an experiment with everybody right now. It's a little bit of, I don't know how it will go. I know what my own experience is, but so just close your eyes for a minute and have some sense of what you're sitting on. Maybe you're sitting on a cushion, maybe you're sitting on a chair, and maybe you have some sense that you know that you're sitting on a cushion, maybe a carpet, maybe a hardwood floor, maybe a chair. So then I invite you to be a little bit innocent and a little bit ignorant, and for the moment, forget about what you saw that you were sitting on, and really feel into the very immediacy of your experience as you're sitting, whether it's your bottom or your back, and really touch into what's the nature of the experience of your body against what is supporting it. And maybe you can report back to me what you're noticing. Can you really discern that there's a chair there or a carpet, or what's the nature of your actual experience? Not what you think it is. What's the nature of your actual experience? So anybody wish to report? There are no wrong answers. You can open your eyes and report back. Anybody. What's the nature of your experience? No wrong answers. Somebody, please.
You could also describe what you did to find out what your experience was.
Yeah.
What did you do? What did you see?
Well, what did you feel?
Yeah. I felt contact, like of my skin on a texture. So my feet were on something a little bit soft and not quite even. And then my rear end was on something that was a little firmer. And then I just felt weight, like gravity.
Yeah, so you feel some weight and soft. And what else did you say about the sitting?
Oh, so the surface, like my rear end was on, was smoother than what my feet felt like.
Okay,
Um,
smoother. Okay,
but still not hard.
yeah. From the contact, would you know that it's a chair or anything, or does that?
If I had never seen it, no.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. So if we're just going with that one sense experience, it's clear that we construct a chair from that sense of contact, which is just a sense of contact. Anybody else? Yes,
So
Selwa.
here's the microphone. Thank you.
I was aware of the pressure of my back and my behind and my feet. I was aware
You were
of
aware of
that
the
pressure.
Okay,
Before I was not focusing on that, but
yeah. And could you tell what you were, from that pressure, did you know that it was a chair, or did it say chair in any size, shape, or form?
um, I know somehow my mind was sensing, feeling that pressure, and I couldn't picture the chair or.
Okay, wonderful. So even in this simple experiment, we're seeing that our minds construct reality. And one of the profound observations and results of Buddhist practice is that we get to see how we construct reality mentally all of the time. It's based on our constructions of reality that we create and imagine that things are much more solid and enduring than they are. Our mind tells us stories about how things are in a way that we're not even aware of. The reason we are so upset when we lose something, whether it be our keys or our phones or our beloved pet or our beloved partner or beloved child, is that it's the nature of the human mind to, without a lot of practice and a lot of education, to distort reality, distort our experience. We overlay onto the immediacy of experience mental constructions of permanence, of solidity, of independence. Our minds simplify things. And it's important that we simplify things. You know, there are the Impressionist painters from France, And in a way, what they were trying to do, as I understand it, was to get to kind of the immediacy of experience. And what's it like if you actually just look at the color and shapes of water lilies, as Monet is so famous for? And if you can go and contemplate water lilies and you don't start thinking about water lilies and just let the experience permeate you, the colors may become more vibrant. The particularity of the experience may become more alive. The glisten on the water as the wind blows over the water may be like dancing pixels of light. And they were trying in their painting style to get at what is it like when we get rid of our concepts and our ideas and we get much closer to the immediacy of experience. Went to almost an extreme. There was a school of art called the Pointillists, where they actually drew little points, and they were actually prefiguring how these things work and our televisions work. The Pointillists were drawing little points of paint on their canvases, again trying to create an alive experience of what is it like to actually see something when we're not thoroughly soaked with just the mental idea of what we're seeing, but we're actually in the immediacy of allowing what we're seeing to affect us. Now, what is probably a blessing for a painter is that they see things with such immediacy and such aliveness. And most of us are covered up by our minds. And we need our minds. We go to Kroger's and we want to buy our favorite bread, which is for us is David's 70 calories health food bread. So I want to go and I want to find David's and I want to just pluck it off. But if I were to go there and just contemplate David's and just allow the color and the shape and to sort of allow the vibrancy of the packaging to sort of impact me, I wouldn't be able to shop. It would take me 5 years to get my shopping done. So our minds are effective at helping us do shorthand but it gets us into a lot of trouble. Some of the worst trouble. In the Middle East, now there are Israelis and Palestinians. And that's shorthand. And the Palestinians shorthand Israelis, well, we want to do away with them, so we'll kill 1,300 of them. And then the Israelis, oh, they're Palestinians. They make them into an object. They reify each other. We'll kill 35,000 of them. It's terrible. In one of the early scriptures of Buddhism, Buddha is quoted as saying, "Not by hate is hate resolved." I see it. It's insane. You're a Palestinian. I'm going to destroy you. You're an Israeli. I'm going to destroy you. These are words. How do people get around this? Well, if you look at the few small number of people who are trying to get around this, is what do? They get to know one another. They live with one another. They eat with one another. They have summer camp with one another. And all of a sudden, this mind-created label falls away. And oh, this person likes to dance just as much as I like to dance. They like to eat just as much as I like to eat. They cry just as much as I cry. The specifics, sometimes in Buddhist philosophy we call specifically characterized phenomena, but the specifics of an individual breaks apart the overarching label, which The label has no actual reality. It has legal reality. You know, sure, when we meet somebody who was born in Palestine, they're legally a Palestinian. Somebody's born in Israel, somebody American. There is usefulness to labels to a point, but they quickly get congested like our nose in allergy-smitten Houston, and they just get, just full of mucus, and these concepts just overbear us. Race, I mean, gosh. It's an interesting book by, her name is Bliss Broyard. It's called One Drop. It's about her father, Anatole Broyard. Anatole Broyard was a mix. He was a very light-skinned descendant of African Americans from New Orleans. He married a Scandinavian, and his children were exceedingly light. So light that they were brought up as white. 2 weeks before he died, his daughter finds out that she has African American blood. She's in some sense an African American. So she writes this whole book called One Drop about her father and how he was passing, but it's about race. Well, why does he call it One Drop? Because in the South, there were actually laws that if you had one drop of African blood, you were to be considered, in the old days, Negro. How do you figure that out? It's like, but it shows how absurd and crazy-making these things become. And if you read the autobiography, it's such the biography of her father, and he was a brilliant writer. I read his material before I knew the whole story about him passing. He wrote a great book about his prostate cancer, the Intoxicated by My Illness, I think it's called. Really, really well written. It's about his prostate cancer. And I didn't give it much thought when I saw his picture, one way or the other. But the burden, the pain of racism in our culture and our history, this is minds gone awry, where people get so tight and so hateful, so proud about one identification. Oh, I'm white. And then everybody who's not, quote, white is, looked down upon. It's a horror. And these are mind-created obstacles. And there are so many, but it goes down to what is the nature of our experience? So for those of you who did the experiment with me and on your own, I would encourage you to go back, and even when you say, an experience of pressure or contact or softness, to even go stay a little bit longer with your experience. Because at a certain point, when we stay with our experience of what that contact feels like, we start noticing, I don't know if I can put any words on this. It's kind of that way. Tata in Sanskrit, that way. It's beyond putting words on. It's the shock of immediacy. For those of us who were alive in 2001, 9/11, it was such a shock to the whole country. We all participated in it, wherever we were living. The ordinary framework of reality that is a kind of prison for all of us got dismantled temporarily. in this weird way, I don't know if others felt this, but I just felt my heart was completely open. I felt so sensitive and so tender and so caring. Because the way that our ordinary mind works, it sort of just creates a kind of imprisonment. And so meditation, as we practice it, is an escalator that takes us from our ordinary mind and that prison of ordinary concepts and the ordinariness and the sleepiness and the dullness and the boringness of everything seems the same and ordinary. It's an escalator that can take us to the immediacy of experience, where we know we're sitting on a chair, but when we start sensing into it, we may first notice, well, it's contact, or it feels hard, or something feels smooth. But then go even further into what smooth really feels like. Not just the words, just what is the experience of, quote, smooth? What's the experience of contact? And you have a little fresh glimpse of it's just that way. And so the Buddha, who is called the Tatagata, he's the one who understood gata. It's just that way, tata, that way. The immediacy of experience is non-verbalizable. It's fresh, it's alive, it's exciting. And so one of the reasons we practice meditation is that it allows us to experience life in a fresh and open and indescribable manner. And it's not like we get there immediately and suddenly and easily, but we get on the way to. And so as we practice meditation, we get closer to that freshness and aliveness and freedom. And that's a joy to our lives. And so that's what we will do at 11 in about 30 seconds. We will be learning meditation together and doing it together. Take a few minute break, and when Emily gets back, she'll probably be changing out the broadcast.
She will?
Yeah, well, she has to change it to the meditation.
Gandhiyana? Konsala Gandhiyana? Nega Pardu? Yeah. Konsala Gandhiyana?
Does anybody have any questions?
Or
Observations?
comments? Some of
Comments?
you maybe hearing this for the first time. Some of you have heard versions of this for many years.
Yes, Charlie.
Here's the microphone, Charlie.
It seems like the name that you described, Tatagata, all things understood as they are, goes fairly well with the translation we've been told for Buddha as the awakened one.
They're just two different names that are used.
Yeah.
So the Buddha woke up to things as they are. So sometimes described as Buddha.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
I think I also have a book of Tathagata stories, and it's about past lives of his.
Sure, yes. Stories before he became Buddha. Yes. Thank you. So Emily, do you switch out the recordings? Okay.